Hi, I am Paul Thurrott. I'm here with my wife Stephanie.
Hi.
Yeah. And we're here to discuss money and how we
Afford is a good word.
how we purchased an apartment in Mexico City. And the reason we're having this conversation is A, we wanted to be transparent about what we're doing and how we're doing it because I think that might help other people who are in a similar situation. And B, I just don't see a lot of information like this out in the world. Um, we've obviously spent a lot of time researching Mexico and Mexico City and rentals versus purchases and all kinds of other things. So this will be just one of probably several videos that will touch on this topic, but it's sort of it's the big money talk, I guess. So I don't know what your memory is of this, but I'm going to say early 2020, I started researching Mexico as a possible destination for us. And, there's YouTube videos, there's books, there's blogs and things, and lots of information out there. You hear a lot about, retiring in Mexico with next to nothing, for $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month or whatever the figure is. And you see things about homes, that cost under $100,000, which, would be amazing. But of course, those homes are probably available, right? But they're not in the places where we want to be.
Right. Not what we're looking for.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know what I was expecting, from a price perspective, but we had planned to spend a lot more time researching this, frankly. I mean, we ended up buying this home a lot more quickly than we expected. So I guess the short version is, if you don't want to wait till the end of the video, is the way that we afforded this. I don't know why I keep saying it that way. The way that we purchased this home, it's not 100% clear we can afford it, is using home equity, right? And the longer story, I think, just involves maybe our history with home ownership and also with home equity, by the way, which I think is a big part of it, including, our prior experience with home equity, how we did or did not use it, and then when we moved into our most recent home, what the situation has been there, I guess. So when we first started discussing this topic, I had said to Stephanie, because she handles the money, that I didn't want her to tell me how much we spent on things or how much we got for things after we sold them, because I wanted to, this is really just for me, I wanted to see what my memory was like. So if you don't mind, I thought we could go through the history of our home ownership.
Yeah, I think it's all relevant because the equity we have today to buy this place
Yeah, is
snowballs backward or
yeah,
snowballs
is a direct
from
result. Yep.
the very first house we bought back in Phoenix in 1998.
See, I told you you're not supposed to tell me anything like this. Well, I remember the
year?
I guess we both remember the year. Yeah, so before our first son was born, our first child was born in 1998, we bought our first home in Phoenix, in the center of Phoenix, 24th and Camelback, roughly. And my memory of that is that it cost $99,000.
That's right.
There you go.
Good job.
Thank you. And at that time, that was a lot of money. I mean, it's still a lot of money, obviously, but for a home, for us at the time, especially, it was a lot of money. Prior to that, we had talked about maybe never being able to afford a home. When we were younger and I was working at a bank, I remember, this is back in the early 1990s, you had to put down 20% on a home, and even on a $100,000 house. I just don't see a future where we have $20,000 in cash. But by the time we did buy our house, things had changed. I want to say we got into this house with like $3,000 in cash or something like that. It was a very small amount of money, but
It was six, but it
Six,
was
there you
3,000 for the down payment and 3,000 for closing costs or something like that. So there was a 3,000 involved, but it was 6,000 all in
There
to
you
get
go.
into that house.
okay. All right, so we were in that house for about a year and a half, a little bit more. We ended up moving back to Boston after Mark was about a year and a half old. And This one I don't remember. I'm going to guess and say we sold that house for approximately $115,000.
Yep, a little bit less.
A little bit less. 111?
113.
113. Okay. Right in the middle. Okay.
We got an offer for 112.
Yep.
And I remember our real estate agent was, it's a good offer. I think you should take it. And
Right.
we were like, I don't know. I think we can get a little bit more. And I mean, 112 to 113 doesn't sound like that much, but when you sell, that's $1,000 in your pocket.
Yep.
You walk away with that money. So
That's right.
it made a big difference.
Yeah, so we moved back to the Boston area, and well, I mean, this was probably very early 2000.
We moved, yeah.
We
when
moved in
bought,
late
when we bought-
1999.
Yes, 2000.
So in very early 2000, we bought a home in Dedham, and this was a small house. This was a like a cape, 2 stories, 2 bedrooms on the top floor with nothing else, just no bathroom. There was 1 bathroom in the whole house. That was the situation. Now this one I'm a little iffy on. We were only there for a few years, I guess, but I want to say we spent. I actually have no idea. It was $235,000. Is my
225.
225. Okay. I remember it was more than twice as much as the house in Phoenix, and it was the same basic number of square feet. It was.
And I remember thinking it was like $250,000.
Yeah,
Like that
yeah.
seemed like such a huge amount of money.
225. So this is going to skew. All right. So this one I don't. Well, let's see. So we had our second child on the way, and right after she was born, we moved into the second house in Dedham, which was a bigger 2-story, kind of colonial home, 1,600 square feet, a bigger yard. But I don't remember how much we sold the first house in Dedham for. So we bought 225. That's maybe lower than I thought. I thought it was somewhere in the 250, 260 range, but.
So this one I'm not 100% sure on, but I think that we sold that one for 265.
Oh, okay.
It was the real estate market was climbing, I know. And we had put some money into it. We put that really nice deck on the back that was pretty expensive, and we had, we had done some work on it, but not $40,000 worth of work. We definitely made money.
Yeah, yeah. I guess we could have. No, we couldn't have. I think maybe only I was working from home at that time. There were technically 3 bedrooms, but I needed one as an office. We had the second child. It just didn't make sense.
It was just too small for 2 kids and 1 person working from home.
Right. Okay. So early 2002, we bought the second house in Dedham, and this one again. This was a wreck. This place needed a lot of work, and we put a lot of work into it over the years. A lot of work. But as far as the initial price of the home, I want to say $339.
I think it was 365.
Yeah. Okay. 365. Okay.
I think it was listed at 350.
350.
But then, it was the
Yeah, of
same
course.
market we were selling and we were buying in, so the houses were going for over. Because I remember we looked at it before the open house, and we wanted to just make them a full price offer.
I didn't want them to have an open house.
Right.
That was their decision. That because we made them an offer, and they said, "Well, we'll hold on to this and see how it goes." But it worked out, and we were there for a long time. So we stayed there through 2017, so 15 plus years. Our kids grew up there.
Yep.
Like I said, a lot of work. I mean, over time, we fence, hot tub came and went. Driveway twice probably. The roof, the windows, painted it at least twice.
Yep. Painted inside and out.
Yep. A lot of stuff. Electrical,
Kitchen.
full electric. Yep. Kitchen. Yeah, we did the kitchen over.
Big kitchen renovation.
It's a never-ending cost. So in 2017, our oldest child had just started college, I guess, the year before. And we moved here to Pennsylvania, the house we're in now. So this place is considerably bigger than the home we were in previously, but it's also a lot less expensive here. So the real estate market had exploded by the time we were leaving. I want to say we sold it for $639, somewhere in there.
$635.
$635.
Yeah.
Okay. So $635,000. And we walked away with about $350,000 in cash, something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
So actually, we should pause here for one moment, because one of the other things that happened in that 15-year time period was we had a home equity line of credit associated with our home in Dedham, the second one. And I don't remember how much that was, but it was at least a couple $100,000 something. We never used it for anything. That was my memory. I don't believe we actually ever used it. Or if we did, maybe to do some home improvement. It was very
I think
brief.
we used it for the kitchen
Okay.
remodel.
Yeah, just to get it done, and then, but we never held on to debt with that, is my memory.
Right.
But in the middle of that 15-year time frame, of course, the 2008 financial crisis happened. And we were in the back of our minds holding on to this home equity line of credit as sort of an emergency fund, right? The idea was that if I lost my job or whatever, this thing would tide us over until I got a new job, right? And so when the crisis happened, the bank took the loan away because a lot of people were pulling all the money out of these lines of credit, which are basically loans, and just taking it, because everyone was going crazy. So the bank put a halt to all of their lines of credit. So we called and said, "What's going on with this?" And they said, "No, don't worry. You guys will, satisfy the needs of this. Just fill out the form again, and you'll be fine, right?" And a lot of time went by, and finally they came back and said, "Yeah, sorry, we're not doing these anymore." And so we got really kind of screwed over. We could have taken out, $100,000, just kind of held on to it, paid interest on it, whatever. And we didn't, because that's a dumb thing to do, right? We don't really need it. And because we never used it, it was taken from us because other people were behaving badly. And I think that's...
And they were blacklisted whole zip codes. So
Oh,
if
good,
you lived in
okay.
any zip code, in the zip code
Okay,
at all,
that's
the
interesting.
property values were dropping enough
Right.
that you didn't have that much equity, and they were just
Yep.
closing these loans down.
Okay. Well, anyway, we got screwed by that. So we moved to Pennsylvania. Now this place, $365 to purchase.
Yep.
So we could have technically paid cash for this house. We could have just done it. The problem was the woman who lived here was in our family. I'll just refer to her as my stepmother. She isn't exactly that, but my father's second wife lived here for many years by herself. And she wasn't doing a lot of work on the house. So the house was starting to have some issues that we would need to address right away. And the decision we made at the time, which I regret, and maybe you don't.
I don't, but I
don't,
understand that you do.
was we need 50 grand-ish to do the upkeep that this place needs. Electrical had to be done over, painting no, not out too much. Well, I don't remember.
A little bit out, mostly
bit out.
interior painting.
Whatever work needed to be done. So we decided we would take out a very small mortgage, which was
$50,000.
and keep that 50,000, to ourselves so we could, do the house. Now, I don't remember how the home equity line of credit came about here. Was that part of the initial mortgage? Like we added another 50,000 in the form of a line of credit or something? I don't.
Not right away, but within the first 2 or 3 months. I think we had to just get the first mortgage set up and applied for it and kind of
So this
going.
was something we sought out. This was
Then
not.
we sought out an
I see.
equity line separately.
Yeah. So flash forward, 3-4 years, whatever it was, and I guess 3 years, and it's 2020. We're in the middle of the COVID pandemic, and all that stuff's happening. We can't travel. We had been going to Europe every summer and doing home swaps, and that stopped. And and that's how I started researching everything. And the more I looked at Mexico, we'll talk about this more later, but the more it kind of made sense. And I remember the initial conversation. I remember exactly when it was. I should try to go figure that out. But I do remember coming to you one night and saying, "This is going to sound crazy. Just give me a second here." I think Mexico would make some sense. And Mexico was just a place we'd never really thought too much about for visiting or for anything else. And anyway, long story short, we ended up visiting Mexico and Mexico City, other parts of Mexico, but also Mexico City twice that year, in June and then in August. And we brought the kids out in August. And, some of our close friends at the time knew what we were thinking. And I remember some of them asking, what do you think? Did you, is this going to be the place? And it's like, yeah, I don't, we didn't stay any place where that, I really cared about. And so I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I didn't see anything in Mexico that kind of took away what I thought would be the good story there, but I also didn't see any place where I was like, yeah, this is it, So in January 2021, this past January, we went out again. This time we stayed in an Airbnb in Roma Norte. We were there for, 2.5 weeks?
Yeah, it was January 22, though. 2022.
2022, I'm sorry, yep. And, this year, right? And you know, I've said this to people since, I don't understand how nobody asked what the heck we were doing, because,
Why were we making our third trip to Mexico
and
City?
what were we doing exactly? Like, anyone who was looking at our photos on social media would have said, what is this? Like, you're not doing anything. You're just walking around every day. And we literally visited several of what we perceived to be, based on research, the top neighborhoods in Mexico City: Roma Norte, Condesa, Polanco, Coyoacan, and others, you know, whatever. But in keeping with the way we do things, we had booked a side trip. We went to Puebla, which is like a 2-hour-ish bus ride away. And we were talking about going to Querétaro, which is probably 2.5 hours in the other direction, you know, for the second half of the trip. But by the time we got to that second half, I had fallen in love with Roma Norte. And I think we both did. I mean, we would have talked about this, I know, at the time. But, you know, lots of good restaurants and bars and shops, and just super safe. You could walk at night, no problems. Just a beautiful area. And so when the notion of the second trip came up, I said, you know, I don't want to go anywhere. I like it here. Why don't we just stay here? You know, and
And I think part of the purpose of the second trip was to continue to scope out places that we thought we might want to live. And
Yeah.
the more we thought about it, I mean,
It's
for
not gonna
one
be
thing, we
Querétaro.
fell in love with Roma Norte, and for another more practical reason, Mexico City is just a lot more convenient and accessible. You land there, and then you
Yeah.
are close to where you want to be. You're not, you know, taking a bus or a Uber or a car or whatever for 2 or 3 hours from there.
Right, right. And you think about people visiting, whether it's like our kids or our friends or whatever. It's one thing to get on a plane, direct flight to Mexico City, and you're there, and that's a 20-minute ride to the apartment or whatever, or the area. But yeah, you know, let's say it was Puebla for some reason, or Querétaro, like the logistics of getting someone there, and the awfulness of that full day of travel between getting to the airport, experiencing the whole plane thing, getting off in some strange place, having to find the bus or however you're getting to the next place. Maybe it's a small airport or something. And just the amount of time, I mean, door to door, it's just awful. And I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want,
yeah.
I could picture people just saying no, you know, because of the difficulty of that trip. Anyway, I guess we got to pause again, because I forgot to mention the other thing that had happened, which was that 2021 had kind of gone by. And sometime late that year, you know, you get these things in the mail, and you got something from the company, the bank or whatever, the bank that has our home equity line, and you said, hey, they're like, you could get another $200,000 worth of credit. And we were like, ha ha ha, we would never do that. That's stupid. And then we kind of separated, and I went off on my own, and I was, you know, as one does, my brain starts thinking, and I kind of went back to you, and I said, you know what, actually, why don't we sign up for that? You know, it's like, we don't know. You never know. Like, what if we go to Mexico, we find something? I mean, we should be prepared to do this. Like, let's put ourselves in a position where we could do this if we had to, right?
Where we can easily access the cash quickly.
Yeah. So, yeah, and that's what happened. So, you know, on the last day of that January trip, we had to go to the airport to get the COVID test, because you needed those at the time, still do, to fly back to the United States. So we went to the airport and did that. And then it kind of, you know, we weren't going to do anything that day. Like, we're flying the next day. We had kind of done that in the morning. And I said, you know, let's continue this research thing that we're doing. We saw there's a real estate agent on the street. These are very rare in Mexico City. In fact, that's the only one I've ever seen. I don't think we've ever seen another one. But there was one just 4 or 5 blocks down the road. So I said, let's just walk down there. We'll talk to someone, and we'll say, hey, we're thinking about this. This will be for the future. What do we have to do first? Like, give us a little to-do list. If we wanted to rent or buy in the future in this area, what would we have to do? Do we need to get some kind of residency thing going? You know, what does that look like? You know, you get a Mexican tax ID, a local bank account. You know, what do you have to do to make that happen? So we set out to do that. And, you know, we walked 2.5 doors down. It was very close. We walked around the corner, and there was an open house at this apartment right on the corner of the block that we were staying in. We'd walked by this place
24 times.
Easily. And we commented on the building, because it had very steep stairs. It was obviously new. And I assumed it was rented or bought or whatever. I didn't, there was nothing to, well, I guess in retrospect there were flags on it and stuff. But I mean, you don't really look up at the top of the building. We just kind of walked by and I never thought anything of it. So anyway, there was a nice older gentleman out front and a little umbrella and a table. He didn't speak any English. And so we asked, hey, we're like, well, we're going to talk about real estate anyway. Why don't we, sure, we'll look at it. We'll see what it's like. See what a new place is like. And he took us to the penthouse first, which is this thing that's twice as expensive as everything else. It's 2 floors plus a rooftop kind of, what do you call it, like a deck or a garden or
Yeah,
whatever.
private roof deck.
It's just with this vista view of the Mexico City skyline. It's beautiful.
Really beautiful.
Could not
If we
afford
had
it.
twice
Yeah,
as
if we had
much
twice
money
as
to
much
spend
money,
on this place, we would
we would have
absolutely
bought-
have bought the penthouse.
Yeah. So I just said, I was looking at the price sheet he'd given me, and I said, well, we can't afford this one. So I was like, no, it's too much. But I said, what about the next one down? What's the next one, in the price list? And that was the one over the other tower. There's 2 towers. And this is the one we ended up getting. But, because we're walking through it, and we're like, this is way too early. We're not ready for this. I thought we had years of research to do. I figured we'd go back to Mexico again and again. And also, I had this figure, which was $250,000, right, because of the home equity line we had. I thought, well, that's how much we can afford. Like, it can't be any more than that. And this place was probably listed for 280.
Yep.
So I thought, well, maybe we'll offer them 250. I don't know how things work there. They don't have an MLS. The system. It's not the same. You can't go get comps. You can't figure out how much something is worth.
There's no transparency like there is in the U.S. You see what the price is and you decide if that to you is a fair price or not, and then you can try to negotiate or not and move forward. But you don't know what the other buildings in that unit sold for, or
Right.
you can go look at other places and you can do the math of the cost per square foot and that kind of thing. But there's no, like there is in the U.S., you can't just look up the price. You don't know what it sold for in the past. You don't know what the neighbors' houses are worth. It's just a lot less transparent.
Yeah. Yep. But I also have this. It looks so stupid. I didn't know half the numbers of the transactions we've incurred, as I've just proven. But I do have this really basic kind of real estate, idea in my head, and this is something that came up. 20 years ago or something, which was, if you're serious about doing this thing, it's not going to get any cheaper. If we had passed on this, or had just somehow not gotten it, there were new buildings going up all the time in Roma Norte, and we found this to be true. They're going to be more expensive. They don't get cheaper. These nice new buildings are going to be expensive. And so I felt like this was an opportunity, like something we should really, if we're serious about it, Of course, I'm getting ahead of myself because we saw this place, and in my head at that time, I thought, well, I really want this, but I'm broken inside. She'll talk sense into me. So we stepped out into the sun. We're walking down the sidewalk and not really talking. And I'm like, how do I broach this
I think
topic?
we were in shock.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess we were on the same page because I'm thinking you're going to say what you should say in all logic and reasonableness is, we can't afford this. So just, we're not ready or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I said,
Which is true.
Yeah. Yeah. So so finally I said, I don't remember what I said. I said something. So what do you think or whatever? And you said, I really want to buy this apartment. And I was like, great. So we walked down to that place. We actually saw another apartment on the way. Interestingly, it had an open house, more expensive also, I would say. All of the apartments were more expensive than the one we looked at, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the real estate agent was closed. It was Sunday, Mexico, it's different. And this is right on the edge of Condesa. So we walked into Condesa, and I think we went to El Morro, and our
Got a churro.
it was terrible. Our brains were just a million miles away. But anyway, the long story short is you started asking around. I know you got onto the Facebook group that you were a part of, see if anyone knew anyone, because we needed representation. And there's more story to this, but I think that's maybe for a different day. But we lucked out because this place was available. They wanted to sell it to us. the price was in fact a good price. We found out we got good representation, and then the company we ended up doing business with, the company selling the place. I've never met people like this before. They're so great. Like they were just. I think they've been kind of incredible.
Yeah, they've been fantastic.
There are issues dealing with Americans that they're not familiar with. They've had a great business doing real estate in Mexico City in particular. I don't think they've ever sold to an American. So we were there first. And there was some entertaining things going on there. We'll talk about that later. But as far as the money goes, I mean, basically, if we hadn't gotten that home equity line increase, which, any other time we would have laughed off and not thought about twice, so thrown that
Right.
thing right in the trash.
Who needs access to $350,000 at the drop of a hat?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, is that what it was? So they must have added 300 to it, not 200.
I think no, it doesn't matter. I think it
doesn't
was
matter what the
originally
numbers-
200 and they added 150 or vice
Okay.
versa.
Yeah, whatever. Yes, I don't know anything. She does the money. The point is, it was this thing I would never have considered, didn't care about, I knew I would never use. But then it was like, well, wait a minute. What if, I mean, it's just, it was kind of a strange circumstance. So that's that. I guess we'll see what happens here. And then we'll try it again later.